Introducing the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya live stream and live chat. Do you have a question from any of the following areas? Land survey, valuation, building survey, land administration, engineering survey, estate agency, property management, and geospatial information management. Join the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya live stream and live chat every Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Thank you, guys. Welcome back to another episode. It's Friday afternoon, right from 2. We are here today. We are handling mainstreaming GIS technology in Kenya. So what is it all about? Just stay put, relax, welcome your friends, and let's learn. Today we are joined with Eric Nyadimo. He's going to explain further and take us through today's episode. Sir, welcome to the show.
Right. So let me start by introducing myself.
Yes.
So my name is Eric Nyadimo. I'm the chair of the GIS chapter at the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. And I'm also the managing director of Orca Services Limited, which is a Geo-spatial solutions provider. And it's a company that has been in Kenya for over 20 years.
Yes.
In addition to that, I'm a full member of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, and I'm also a licensed surveyor. And I'm currently privileged also to be serving as a vice chair of the Lands and Physical Planning Sector Board within KEPSA. And currently I'm also privileged to be chairing a task force that was appointed by the Cabinet Secretary and Ministry of Lands to formulate regulations to facilitate electronic land transactions.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, maybe please give us an overview of GIS technology in Kenya.
Yeah. So the use of GIS is growing in Kenya. GIS is a technology that is over 40 years old, and it has evolved from different stages. The power of GIS is really in the analytical capabilities, although many people do deploy GIS mainly for mapping. But we are seeing that there is a wider acceptance of GIS technology in Kenya, and as a technology of choice. There is increased recognition by different sectors, from public to private to business organizations, and we're also seeing the county governments recognizing and seeing the need to develop and deploy this technology within their jurisdictions. There's also more training being offered. There are quite a lot of people who are being trained in GIS in one way or another. And yes, the technology is growing, and I think the future is getting brighter and brighter for this particular technology. Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
So how has the GIS practice been affected by the COVID-19?
COVID is something that I would say has been terrible. We have never seen anything like this.
Sure.
Where work stops. People can't travel, people can't move, and with technologies or practices of things like GIS, you need to go out there, you need to go and collect data, you need to go and meet people. So when you have curtailment of movement or restriction of movement or reduction in terms of hours that people can be able to do things, then you find that many of us who are in this particular profession have really been affected, because work has nearly stopped, and as I've said, it's something that we haven't seen before, and I'm saying we are learning, we are trying to see what we can be able to do to intervene and see ourselves getting back to doing things in the near future.
So maybe what are some of these interventions that you are putting in place so that you can handle the new norm?
Well, I think one of the critical things is the need to innovate, because we have seen that there's been an explosion of online meetings, and people have suddenly discovered that you can actually conduct most of your business online, that you don't need to have physical presence to be able to do certain things. So like we have seen also within ISK that we have been able to do chapter meetings, we've been able to do council meetings, or doing all that online. As I said, I'm privileged to be chairing the task force on electronic transactions. And for the last nearly 3 months, we have been doing all our meetings online. We've done public participation online. So this is a new norm that is coming up and providing us with a new way of doing things. And the other thing that COVID is teaching us is that there is need for us to be able to develop our own institutions and our own organizations instead of depending, say, on the developed world, especially like when you're talking about health systems. We suddenly realize that it's not possible if somebody is sick to travel from Kenya to another country so that they can be able to treat that person. We have to develop our own institutions. We have to have capacities. So COVID is bad in one way, but it's also good in another way, that it is telling us that we have to change the way we are doing things and develop a new normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe away from that, let me ask a question about the Civil Aviation Unmanned Aircraft System Regulation 2019 Act. How does this act affect the operation of the GIS practice?
GIS is concerned with mapping.
Yes.
Basically getting the products once the survey has been done, producing the maps. And GIS, you're talking about the way we are looking at it from ISK is an interaction or interaction of different technologies. You're talking about photogrammetry, you're talking about cartography, you're talking about remote sensing. And if you look at photogrammetry and remote sensing, these are of course technologies that are being used to capture data without being in direct physical contact, and the UAVs present us with that kind of a medium to be able to do that. And UAVs have got a special place in terms of mapping, because if you look at UAVs and you compare it with ground survey techniques, you find that there's, to a certain extent, ground survey techniques could be limited in terms of covering a given extent. And then you find that sometimes also aerial techniques, the traditional aerial techniques where you're deploying the large aircraft to do mapping, are also limited to a certain extent. For example, if I want to map an area that is maybe 5 square kilometers, it doesn't make sense to deploy a large aircraft to do that. And you say I'm going to do that using ground survey techniques, it's going to take me maybe 30 days to be able to do that. So we see that the UAV, this is a relatively new technology. It is presenting us with unique opportunities, but it can also be misused, because the UAV can carry any payload. So it can be used by terrorist organizations, it can be destructive, it can have a collision with an aircraft, so to speak. It can be operated by somebody who doesn't really know how to operate it. And therefore the regulations are critical to be able to guide the use of technology. I think our only disappointment with regard to the regulations, and we did try to bring out these issues to the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, is that there was need to be able to have a special categorization of the use of drones specifically for mapping, and then also to be able to require that people who are to undertake that mapping get the necessary approvals from the director of survey as the person who, or the office which is required to be able to guide the process of actually mapping, so as to control in terms of the mapping products that are actually being produced, instead of making it open and then anybody can be able to do it, and then there are no standards in terms of what is actually being produced. But we do believe that this is a starting point. Let's have the regulations, and of course the regulations are not written on stone. After some time they can always be changed, and they can always get to fit into the particular area that they need to be able to fit. So I would say it's a plus. I think there is movement in one area or another, and we are still looking forward to getting these technology being used more and more in the country.
All right. Maybe comment about the license fee and even the training part of it.
Yeah. We have recently submitted our comments as ISK to the Kenya Civil Aviation with regard to issues related to licensing. One of the key things is that most of the payments are denominated in the US dollars, and we don't really understand why a country like Kenya would be pegging such kind of things to the US dollar. I mean, maybe we are looking at it in a different way, trying to compare it with the other
economies.
Not economies, but talking about like the bigger aircraft and so on and so forth, requirements from ICAO and the rest. But I think we need to be able to develop local solutions. And one of the other things is that this is still an issue that most of the countries are still struggling with. I think we are making some good steps in this particular direction. And with regard to training, I think it's a bit overrated. I think to fly a drone, especially when you're talking about mapping, doesn't require those really stringent requirements. Of course, there are certain other drones that can be used for transportation, which have to fly, say, longer distances and so on and so forth. And those ones, of course, need stringent requirements in terms of training and capacity building for the same. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, there's a member who would send an email to us asking whether it's possible to trace the equipment, the survey equipment. So maybe from your perspective, is it possible that we can have a way to track the equipment so that even if a surveyor lost his or her equipment in the field, it's easy to trace it and it cannot be used with another surveyor?
Yeah, that's a very good question, very valid question, very relevant in this particular context. And yes, the answer is yes. If you look at the equipment that we are selling here at Orca Services, because some of the things that we are dealing with is the sale of survey equipment, the equipment has tracking capability, and we can be able to track using SMS alerts, and we can also be able to log in that particular equipment into a portal, and we can be able to trace and see where that particular equipment is. Of course, that relies on the battery power, that if somebody can take the equipment and remove the battery, and once the person has removed the battery, then you're not able to get the signal. But the good thing is that if the person wants to use it, they will have to use the battery. So the moment that they put in the battery, again, it will show, or the signal will be able to trace it. So it's possible to trace and track the equipment, just like if you have an iPad and so on and so forth, you can be able to trace and track that equipment. And we have those SMS alerts, which we are now calling anti-theft technology. So the modern equipment is coming with that kind of technology. Then the other thing which is very critical is that you can be able to control these equipment remotely.
Okay.
So you can actually lock that equipment. So even if somebody has stolen it, you can lock it so that it becomes useless to that particular person. And these equipment, if you're looking at the GPS equipment, they are expensive devices. I mean, if you have to buy a very good set, you are probably going to spend, say, like 3.5 million. And of course, if you're going to insure that equipment, one of the things that the insurance companies will be asking is how else are you also trying to protect your equipment? Just like for the car, you need to have an alarm and so on and so forth. So this kind of anti-theft technology is proving very useful for people who are spending lots of money to invest in this technology. So the answer is yes, it's possible.
So apparently, this surveyor who lost his, is it possible for him to trace?
It depends on the equipment. So I would say that if somebody is buying equipment or investing in equipment, check whether that equipment has got anti-theft technology, whether it has got the SMS alert, whether it has got the tracking capability, whether you can be able to lock it remotely. So it depends on the equipment. We'd have to check and see maybe what equipment that person had.
But again, it all depends with our network coverage, because in our country, there's some parts which they are not really accessible in terms of by the network. Yeah. Can drones also that affect?
I think most of the country is fairly covered with mobile technology or mobile network. So I think there are only very few areas, and even if somebody wants to deploy it and work with it, and I don't think you can say that you'll restrict yourself to working in areas which do not have network. It wouldn't really make sense. So the moment you power on that machine and it has a tracking capability, we'll be able to tell and see exactly where it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so much glad to have you. Please, do you have any question about this one? You can just like, comment, share, and let's engage one-on-one so that at least we understand how it's going, like what's really happening when it comes to survey, mainstreaming GIS technology in Kenya. It's a new norm, but again, it's really catching up very, very, very steadily, more especially when we integrating with the emerging technology, right?
Yes.
Yes. Now, maybe moving forward, there is another question about land survey has emerged from chain survey to 3D mapping.
Yes.
What can you comment about that?
Yeah, that is true. I mean, survey is a technology that is ever changing. And if you look at it from the beginnings, when people were using sticks and ropes to be able to do mapping, to the extent that now we are using 3D scanners to do the mapping, and we can map streets. We can map almost anything on the surface of the earth using various technologies. And of course, there is demand for better products. The demand for our users are always demanding and to be able to get the services in a much faster way. And we have seen evolution of technology from the point when we used to use films for aerial cameras to the point now where we are using digital cameras, where it's possible to fly today, and by end of the week we have already produced a map. While if you compare that with when we are using all the technology, to take you maybe about 6 months to be able to process the data. So as an institution, we need to work on standards. And as a chapter for the GIS, we have formed various committees that are looking at how these issues can be better handled. The challenge, of course, is funding to allow us to do better research and to provide increased training and capacity building for our members in some of these areas. What we are seeing and what we really need to do is to increasingly partner with training institutions. And yes, you see, you go to a training institution, you are taught I wouldn't really say the basics, but you're being taught the theoretical aspects of it. Because what is really changing is the technology, but the theory is more or less remaining the same. So we need to partner with learning institutions so that we can be able to beef up their capacities. We also need to partner with the manufacturers of equipment and offer, so that they can be able to offer specialized training. As you realize, some of the equipment, say like for the 3D scanners and so on and so forth, mobile technology where you deploy mobile mapping technologies on your car and you are able to move across from one street to another to do the mapping. Then some of these equipment are very expensive. If you're talking about 3D scanning, and if you talk about a good set of a 3D scanner, it's going to cost you about 25 million.
Okay.
Yes, and that's a lot of money. And in this economy, we are not able to charge as much as we should be able to charge compared to, say, if you're in Germany or in the US. The other challenging point is to try and see how banking or financial institutions can come in and support some of our members who would love to get some of this equipment but lack that necessary capital, and for the banks also to be able to understand that this piece of equipment can cost this amount of money, and we can be able to find some flexible mechanism for financing this kind of people to be able to get this kind of equipment.
Okay. Maybe another one is from our member who is asking, how has ISK adjusted to the continuous change and innovations, and how this has affected the demand in GIS products or other equipments?
What we are doing as an institution, as I said before, is that within the chapter we have various committees, and we are encouraging our members to be part of these committees, and we are looking at issues that are arising on a day-to-day basis. And seeing how best to be able to respond. We are also working to undertake, of course, with the COVID issues. We have been affected in terms of what we could be able to do, but we are looking at, say, having monthly seminars, etc., where we can discuss issues that are relevant on a day-to-day basis, so that we can be able to improve the training and build the capacity for our members.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, since you are the chair of GIS chapter,
Yes.
Please, could you clarify the process that one needs to undergo so that to qualify to be a member, or rather different categories within that chapter?
Yes.
From student, affiliate, all through to the full membership?
Yes. So if we look at our qualifications, they're not different from any of the other chapters. They're basically the same. And as you rightly pointed out, you can start out from a student who is a person who is studying a relevant study at an institution that has been recognized by the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya, at least from the diploma level to degree level, doing that study. Then you've got an affiliate who is somebody who has undertaken a certificate course, of course, in relevant study, and in this context, so we are talking about cartography, photogrammetry, or remote sensing. And then we have diploma. And again, for the diploma, you need to have a diploma in a relevant study. And finally, at the graduate level, again, you're undertaking, or you have undertook training, or you have a degree in a relevant study. So you either need a certificate, a diploma, or a degree in a relevant field of study, and you must have undergone training in surveying. That's a critical part. We know that GIS, the use of GIS is widespread. There are many other disciplines that are learning GIS, from environment to geography to name it. But in the context of ISK, we are only focusing on those of our members who have specialized on this particular study. So the critical thing here is that for you to be admitted, you must have been a student of surveying. Yes. So and it's related subjects or disciplines like cartography, photogrammetry, remote sensing.
So there's nothing like, I never trained in cartography or any other related discipline, but I have passion now. Does it mean I can't practice?
No, we're not talking about practice here. We're basically just talking about membership to the chapter of the institution. As we have said, GIS is multidisciplinary. You'll find GIS is being used in statistics. You'll find GIS is being used in conservation, in fast-moving consumer goods, in sales and in marketing. So you can deploy GIS in almost any sector of the economy. And so there's nothing that says that that you can try to regulate the use of GIS in various sectors or various components of the economy. What we are saying is that we are only concerned with the surveyors who are practicing GIS, who are developing GIS products, who are developing GIS applications, and who need a common environment where they can be able to share and brainstorm and discuss issues related to GIS and how to mainstream that technology and how to improve on that particular technology. What we are really concerned with as an institution is mapping.
Mapping.
Yes. Because mapping is restricted to surveying professionals. So you must have undertaken a training in survey to be able to produce the maps. And we know maps are controlled under the director of survey. And so that is where we're actually coming in. And that's why we are also developing standards of the maps that can actually be used. Because, GIS is all color. So you can find anybody can put anything with any color. You can put the water to be red, or roads to be black, or contours to be yellow. So, but mapping is a training. It's an area of professional. Is an area of professional capacity. So you can't just do things the way you want to be able to do it. You must be guided by certain aspects. So we have seen cartography has been a technology that has been there for hundreds of years, and therefore that's why we are coming in, so that we can strongly defend that particular aspect and ensure that the products that are coming out into the market are standard, and that the consumers of this information are protected.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. By the way, we are so much glad that you are here. Remember, you can talk to us at Twitter at ISK_Kenya. That is our Twitter handle. Please do engage us. You can also like our page, YouTube channel, that is Institutional Surveyors of Kenya. Every episode that we are doing and much more, we are going to upload them there. So make sure that you subscribe to that channel and ensure that you get updated with every information that we release from here at the institution. Also, like our page, share, that is Institution of Surveyors of Kenya. And remember you can reach us through via the website www.isk.or.ke. Just chat with us every weekday from Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Just engage us. Our customer care team is more than willing to serve you and at your service. Thank you so much as we are proceeding. Now, environment has become one of the key factors to consider in this era. Now, how is GIS geared to encouraging environmental conservation in that regard?
Yeah, if you look at GIS and environment, they're very closely related.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the whole idea about GIS developed really from the issues related to environment.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can be able to have different layers of information and that you can be able to bring them together and then you can be able to analyze this particular data and information.
Mm.
And many of our viewers here would be familiar with the company ESRI, which if you look at the acronyms, they stand for Environmental Systems Research Institute, which has been one of the leading organizations, international organizations that has led in the development of GIS, and you can see it from their name, Environmental Systems Research Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we are told that this issue about GIS came out of experiments or research being done at Harvard and focusing primarily on environment. So we find that GIS has always focused on environmental conservation.
Mm-hmm.
There are very many organizations in Kenya and in the world that are using GIS, ranging from issues on forestry to wildlife conservation to vegetation mapping and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the areas of remote sensing, you find primarily the concern here is on land cover classification,
mm-hmm.
it is on land use patterns, it is on degradation, it is on change detections and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And you find that many of the things that have been developed with regard to GIS in terms of analysis have really focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
We in Kenya also, we are not doing badly on this particular area. Of course, we need to be able to improve.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen organizations like Kenya Water Towers, we have seen institutions like Kenyatta University focusing primarily on these issues on environmental concerns.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen organizations like Kenya Forest Service and a number and hosts of other international organizations like UNEP
Mm-hmm.
deploying and investing in this particular technology so that they can be able to harness the power of GIS when it comes to matters of environmental conservation. So we can say it's a great technology that is ever changing, that is providing products that are increasingly better and better and producing good results that people are able to consume and understand what is actually happening within the environment. So GIS is a primary driver for environmental conservation.
Okay. So, and another one is what plan has ISK laid to improve the state of GIS and mapping infrastructure in the country?
Yeah, we are doing quite a number of things. One of the things that we are doing is that we are working on a new Survey Act. I know it has taken quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a pertinent subject, and we have different stakeholders, and I think the issues about the Survey Act will crystallize, and maybe in the next 1 year or so we should be able to have a new Survey Act that will be able to also be very clear in terms of the use of GIS and the products that are coming out of there and how they can actually be able to be deployed. As I've said again, with ISK, what we are doing is that we are working on developing standards for GIS, and we are focusing on training and capacity building for our members. We are encouraging our members to share their experiences on these particular areas, and we need to partner with the learning institutions, we need to partner with the software manufacturers, we need to partner with hardware manufacturers, so that we can be able to offer specialized training to our members and improve our skills and general output in terms of the products. Yes.
Now, maybe outside that one, there's a member called Daniel.
Yes.
Daniel, and since you are the chair of the task force, I
Yes.
have to ask you this.
Yes.
He asked about, he had given views about the whole land bill,
Yes.
and he was wondering whether did his views get considered in any way, and is there a way that he can reach the task force?
Okay. Yes, so it's possible to reach the task force. We have an email address, which is elandtransactions@gmail.com. elandtransactions@gmail.com. I guess we can be able to put that on the chat so that people can be able to see that. And yes, we have received, and we have, I think, tried to acknowledge all the responses that we have received from members of the public as well as various institutions. And we are compiling all these comments that have come in from various quarters into a matrix, and we are studying those matrices, studying those comments, and then looking at it vis-a-vis what was expected of this particular task force, so that at the end of the day we can be able to provide an answer as to whether we shall accept the comment, reject it, or take it into consideration. So we are trying our best in terms of reviewing the comments and suggestions that we're getting in from the members of the public.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And maybe what's your, because we understand you have other engagements waiting, and we appreciate by the fact that you gave us a few minutes of your time, so that at least we can do this one, and our viewer can really get one or two lessons that he can take home. So maybe what's your general opinion about the whole GIS practice in Kenya?
I think the GIS practice is evolving, and as I've said before, it is getting wider recognition, wider acceptance. What we really need to do is to ensure that we have standards, so that the products that are coming out are standardized. And you know, if GIS is concerned with mapping, then you have analysis and so on and so forth. When you're talking about mapping, we have got fundamental data sets which need to be coming in from the government, specifically say like from Survey of Kenya, in terms of things like the boundaries and so on and so forth. And of course it is good that people base whatever work they're doing on standardized products or standardized data, so that you do not produce maps that do not actually represent what they need to be able to represent. So it's an evolving technology. As you can see with the GIS chapter, since it was formed, basically starting as sub-chapters, which took about 2 years, and now we are in about 6 years since the chapter was formed, and it is a chapter that is growing, a chapter that is very active, and the future is bright for the chapter. It's one of the very fastest growing chapters within the institution, with a lot of vibrant members, with thinking in very many areas, developing different applications. So we are evolving, and we are getting better and better. Yes.
Thank you so much. So guys, that is it for now. Remember, our main theme is kupima na kukadiri. So, and but with the fields like GIS, it's very easy now to integrate technology with these coming emerging trends. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy that you joined us. Now, from now moving forward until 4, we're going to just engage on live chat. We have to be chatting. Do you have a question that maybe perhaps we have not handled here, and you think really it's a burning question that you really need to get an answer? Do this, just hapo chini, you can just comment or send us an email, info@isk.or.ke, and then we are going to give our feedback to that. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you made time to come.
Yes.
We really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're looking forward to getting the comments, and we'll be able to respond to them, and encourage you to continue using this technology, to continue learning about this technology, building your capacity on the same. And as an institution, we are always there. And I think we're also coming up with a training institute, and one of the things that we'll also be doing is not just offering training and capacity building for our members, but also explaining and evangelizing this technology to a myriad of other people who are outside there, who are not necessarily professionals, but who need to be able to understand this particular profession, practice, and what they need to do, and the products that are coming out from there.
Yes.
Yes.
So you get it? Now that is it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start chatting till 4, then we can wrap it up all together. Remember, every Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Join us. Same program, different topic with different kind of guests. So stay tuned, guys. Thank you.
Introducing the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya live stream and live chat. Do you have a question from any of the following areas? Land survey, valuation, building survey, land administration, engineering survey, estate agency, property management, and geospatial information management. Join the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya live stream and live chat every Friday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.